Welcome back to another Wild Bearing podcast. Today I have with me Camden Senti, one of the cowboys that I know. He's going to be talking to us about rodeo. I'll give a second to let Cam introduce himself.
I appreciate you having me on the podcast, man. This is
Definitely.
I've done a couple before, but to do something with like one of my best friends I've known for a couple of years and who credit to, I got you in the rodeo, injuries included. But this is awesome, so I appreciate the opportunity to do this.
Definitely.
But like you said, I'm Camden Senti, 26 years old. I'm from Redlands, California originally. Joined the Navy back in 2018, so coming up on, or 2017, so coming up on 8 years now. And then I've been doing rodeo for almost 2 years also.
Yeah.
So, but hitting it hard for the last year and a half.
Yeah.
So
Awesome, dude. What do you do in the rodeo?
So rodeo, I'm a bareback rider.
Yeah.
So, if you don't know what bareback riding is, or if you've never watched rodeo before, they pretty much describe it as holding onto a suitcase handle and just going off on it. So if you've never seen bareback riding, this is kind of what it looks like. And so it's exactly what they describe. It's a handle that you use your glove that has a tit on it, wedge your hand in there, get on the back of a horse, and you just go. So this is pretty much your single point of contact for your 8 seconds, other than when you spur, and your spur is connecting with the horse's neck. That's your other 2 points of contact. But, when you're spurring, you lose that 2 points. So this is your main point of contact for that entire thing.
Yeah. Awesome, dude. Thanks for bringing the props.
Yeah.
Super cool. Before we get into more rodeo stuff about the rigging that you use and like rodeo different events and rodeo and stuff, let's just break the ice a little bit and tell us about something wild you've done in the last year.
Something wild, something I never did before, even though, like I said, I've been hitting rodeos pretty hard the last year and a half, 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'd never done rodeos consecutively, and kind of learning as I go through rodeo, I kind of learn new events and new stuff that's happening. So one of the things that they do is they call it Cowboy Christmas, not the one at NFR. Cowboy Christmas every year. It happens in this like peak summertime in July, where all these rodeos are just happening in like consecutive like actions. So you're on the road for like more than a month straight. Like almost every day there's a rodeo.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't do that necessarily, but on the East Coast in the Southern Rodeo Association, they did have like a lot of consecutive rodeos for like a week. So I hit 4 rodeos in 4 days, 5 total rodeos, but they had 2 entries for one rodeo. So I did 4 rodeos, 3 in a row, and then took 1 day off at a rodeo and then rode the next day again, which was good because I ended up getting hung up on my 3rd one, so that was pretty good.
Had a little extra day break then.
Yeah,
those hang-ups
yeah,
are really fun.
And it was especially difficult because last year my car AC went out. So middle of, if anyone knows, for like Virginia, the East Coast, North Carolina, it gets the humidity here and the heat is just killer during the summertime. So I was driving around for a week straight, almost no AC, sleeping in my car.
Mm-hmm.
And just dealing with it in my own way, showering in rivers, using like shower wipes, and then if I ran into a Love's gas station, I would pay the $10 to go actually get a full shower, which was a blessing.
Yeah. That's some cowboy stuff if I've ever heard of it.
I had my jet boil going, making ramen noodles, eggs, eggs and coffee, fresh coffee in the morning. So
nice.
It's the little things that make it bearable.
Yeah,
so it was good.
Nice. That's awesome. That's pretty wild. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people when they hear that you just do rodeo, they're like, okay, yep, that's wild.
Yeah.
But now you tack on like you're doing it consecutive days in a row. That's even more wild because that's the ground and pound, the wear and tear that puts on your body.
Well, yeah, and just I think the most I've done in one weekend, I got on 3 broncs in one weekend, and that was in Williamston, I think in February, and I didn't do too good on the first one. The second one, I actually won that round, technically won that day, but the third one, I got on 2 broncs in one night, and by that third one, I could just feel my whole right side kind of just like locking up and shutting down because how sore it was, and I got whipped pretty good on that last one.
Yeah.
And my confidence was just like skyrocketed after I won that round. So, but yeah, it was a little bit of a trashy horse. But those 4 days, the first one going out, it was just like a small rodeo. I can't remember the name of the town in North Carolina, but the horse, sat down as soon as they got out. It was getting ready to rear up. And I hit my head on the back of the chute.
Oh, shoot.
And so that was the start of that. Yeah. So it was
that'll wake you up.
yeah, that was good. That was good stuff, man.
Awesome. Yeah, I want to get into later, how you prepare, for rodeos and how you recover as well. But before we do that, how did you get involved in rodeo? What was your inspiration? Did you grow up around it? Did you have friends that kind of brought you into it?
Yeah, that's I get that question a lot. Mm-hmm. So, growing up in Southern California, didn't have too many opportunities to go to rodeo. I ended up, I'd never been to a rodeo before I was a sophomore in high school. And a girl I was seeing at the time, she was a rodeo queen. And so I went to, I think, 2 or 3 of her rodeos. So that was my first experience with it. And I never really watched rodeo in high school at all. Yeah. Growing up, one part of my family owned a dairy farm in Northern California, so I remember going up there quite a bit and whatnot. But then after high school, I left for Japan immediately when I joined the Navy. Mm-hmm. So I lost touch with a big, the Western community, even though pretty much Western community, I was just off-roading and listening to country music. So it wasn't really that. But when I got from Japan and got here, I didn't know anybody on the East Coast. I didn't have any friends yet. Basically, just sitting in my barracks room. Yeah. Drinking Busch Light and playing video games. Yeah. I got sick of it. I wanted to make some friends. Yeah. So one of my coworkers had told me about a local country bar, which ended up being the Bank in Norfolk, Virginia, the largest country bar in Virginia.
And the best.
Yeah, and the best. Not just because they're one of my sponsors. But went there a couple times. Didn't have the right boots to dance in. I had working boots with a, rubber sole on them. So I would just sit down at the bar, and I asked them if they would put on one of the PRCA rodeos that was happening that day. Mm-hmm. And I was just watching the rodeo, and some guys came up. I was looking at stats on my phone of some of the riders too. And some guy came up and asked me. I was like, "Hey man, do you rodeo?" And I was like, "Nah, man, I don't." And he goes, "What? Have you thought about doing it?" And I was like, "Not really. I just really enjoy watching it." Mm-hmm. And he goes, "You should pick an event and do it." So I was like, "Oh, well." Well, you convinced me. So
that's all it took.
Yeah.
A couple Busch Lights in.
Yeah.
Sure, I'll hop on.
Yeah. Well, and then it was kind of because I had no idea how to get into it. No idea what the right gear I needed, and being in the military, I knew that just because it's the cheapest, it's not the best. So I wanted to get adequate equipment before I started doing it. So I did, and it actually did research what I needed to get, kind of price points. Mm-hmm. Nothing on Amazon. Please do not do that. Shop on Barstow or something, Beastmaster Barstow. But got a rigging off a guy in Arizona. Ended up being like a 30-year-old rigging that was still in really good shape, but it did its job for a little bit. Yeah. And I got pretty much all my gear, and it sat in the corner of my barracks room for about 5 to 6 months, and I got tired of looking at it. And I bought all this stuff. Yeah. I need to go ride. So I found the closest association, which ended up being the Southern Rodeo Association, mostly in North Carolina, a couple in Virginia. Okay. And I entered into the closest one possible. So ended up being 3 hours away and facing North Carolina at Terra Creek, still one of my favorite rodeos. And I was there, knew nobody, paid my fees, and I'm put my rigging on the horse. I'm looking at it, and one of the guys comes over and he goes, "Hey, you know how to put this on?" I was like, "Absolutely not." And he was like, "Okay, we're gonna figure this out together." I was like, "Sounds great, man." Yeah. And rest is history, really. Yeah. It was a spur of the moment thing. Like,
no pun intended.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
That's one of the things that I've noticed about the rodeo community is the people just the willingness to help.
Oh, dude, it's if the SRA and the people that work it and the people that ride in it, if they hadn't taken me in like that, I would have either ended up incredibly more injured than I ever gotten and probably could have died, or two, I would have just given up because, I mean, that rigging that I first got was crap, and I was talking to a guy, one I call my mentor. His name's Lane Rowland, former PRCA rodeo guy. I think he actually might be doing it again, but he took a lot of time to teach me the proper procedures and pretty much how not to die. And
which is good.
Yeah, and Strawberry Pruitt, the guy that owns Double Creek Pro Rodeo, he overheard us and he heard it. He was actually pretty much like talking crap on my rigging because how old it was and how inconvenient it was. And he goes, "You said he needs a new rigging?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "I think I got one in my trailer." And I was like, "All right, let's go see if it works." And it was it was a older bar stow. Handle was splitting, but Lane took the time out of it. He put barge cement all over it. We viced it together, and I've been using that rigging a year and a half. Yeah. So it's my go-to, and it's still in decent condition. I just got this new one, so not really comfortable using it yet, but I think it's more sentimental value because I've been using the other one so much. But if I didn't have those guys there to help me, I would have never even placed in the finals or anything like that. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, just as you've touched on, the rodeo community is some of the best people that I know, and building connections is so important when you're trying to get involved in rodeo and whatever event that you do. Connections have gotten you all over the place.
It was funny too. I always love talking to people and like kind of meeting because I'm always trying to learn some new stuff. Because especially if I don't know anything about that specific area, I think talking to people that have literally live it every day. Like these guys that in the SRA that ride in rodeos, they live it every day. A lot of them own ranches, they own cattle, they're riding horses all the time. Those are the guys that you are gonna learn like the most valuable life skills from, and how to actually be competitive in the sport.
Right.
So, but they will. There've been times where I was like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna sleep in my car, and they're like, dude, it's like 110 degrees at night. Just come sleep in our trailer. I was like, I don't know, you guys don't have to do that. I'm like, no, like come sleep in the trailer. Like you'll be on the ground, but they'll give you a blanket. they'll give you a blanket and the pillows. Yeah. So yeah, it's been awesome, man. It's been nothing short of a just straight up blessing to have. And I'm not gonna say that's the entire rodeo community, but just here specifically is just incredible. Just so blessed to have those people in my corner.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I remember going down to that Terra Creek rodeo. I think that was your 1 year anniversary of riding. Yeah. That was probably to this date, one of the most fun rodeos I've been to. Just, the whole shebang, and I remember at the end they brought out that chuck wagon and cooked us some food, and that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that 1 year anniversary, and that was a pretty interesting time because I was also coming off an injury at that rodeo, so I didn't expect to do too good there. And I know it's just like you need to like hype yourself up a little bit, but I was really doing it because I wanted to do good, and like a 1 year I was like, I'm not going to skip this rodeo because of that. Yeah. And but my first year there, my very first rodeo, I rode both days. The first day, I actually did for a first ride ever, big on a horse. Did that pretty good. I think I fell off at like 6.5 seconds or something like that. Yeah. But I ended up breaking my sternum, scorpion, feet back, neck crunched, and my chest crunched, broke it. Second day, was already entered, paid my fees, so I was like, well, I'm not going to skip this. So I rode, I rode, and then the production that they put on at Terra Creek is just like second to none. Like the owners of it are incredible. They're the nicest people I've ever met. But they had a news station, like a radio station there, and they did a post-rodeo interview with all the contestants. Yeah. And I look back at that sometimes, and I'd be like, I wish they never would have aired this thing. I had no idea what I was doing that entire time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's funny to look back and see the progression of like how much I've learned and how much I've grown, just in a year.
Right.
It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Cool. So can you, I guess, dive into more now what you do to prepare for rodeos, like your rigging, both physically, mentally, and how you recover from rodeos?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's a little bit different. And bareback riding specifically, there's a reason they call it the toughest sport on dirt. And it's not just like the animals and the physicality, it's just how much it wears and tears on your body. And going into being a bareback rider, I knew none of that.
Yeah.
I had no idea. And when I first started riding, I didn't even remotely think about that until I broke my chest the very first time. But recovery is preparing physically is a huge thing. And me growing up, played football, did a little bit of cross country, but I was never like a big gym person, and I have to have that motivation to do it. But like being physically like prepared is a huge thing, especially just being able to lift with your arms, like lift on your rigging with your arms. But recovery is what I've had so many injuries in the last year and a half, and I equate that to one, I've been learning this entire time because we don't have a place out here to really actually practice where you can get on like a good practice horse. I learned everything I know from entering into rodeos, paying my fees, getting on, learning how to just the consistency of doing that has made me so much better because I didn't have like that mentor or practice that I could get. Like you can't a lot of bull riding, but I 100% could be more physically fit to do it. My injuries this year have not let me be as much as I wanted to be physically fit, especially going into the finals in February. But getting back to that, I am getting ready for those. So, But when it comes to gear and getting everything right, 3 days before the rodeo, I take everything out of my bag, do a gear check, make sure, first check I do is usually my latigos. I've used the same latigos for a year now. I've replaced them one time, but inspect both your latigos, every single inch, because there's a tear in them. I've seen latigos mid-ride just snap, hit guys right in the face. But when your latigo snaps, your rigging's falling off with you, and so depending on where you are on that ride, you could fly 6 to 8 feet somewhere else and land in a really bad position, or you can get stomped on, and that's just not a good place to be. And really, just because my rigging was so old, I double checked, make sure my handle was good in case I need to put more barge cement and vice it together, make sure it was handling okay. I tie these together, my D-rings together, just so I can keep my tree okay. Because so it sits like this, but once it gets on a horse, it splits open, and you want this tree to stay that's why I also have this band around there and a band down here, because once your band spans out more, you have a better chance of it sliding off and ending up under the horse. And so, and when your hand is pretty much glued into that rigging, that's a death sentence for riders. So, but when it comes to like your glove, I think your rigging's definitely your most important piece of equipment, but your glove is keeping your hand in it. And so having a decent glove, having 2 gloves is really important. But, you put, it's called benzoin. It's an oil that you put on the leather of your glove. It hardens the leather. And then after it hardens, you put your rosin, which is a completely different rosin than bull riders use. Right. Ours is a crystal, turns into a powder. Theirs is more sticky. But that rosin, when you put your glove in your rigging, creates that bind, and you like to hear that creak. and your tip get through there like that. And that's what creates the bind, so your hand's not coming out of there, and making sure the tip of your glove is past that point. So that's what really keeps your hand in there. So yes, your rigging is the most important piece, but your glove is the most essential to keep in there. So yeah, but other than that, like, chaps are just chaps. Make sure they're in good condition. After every rodeo, I take my spurs off. I take a wire brush to them, make sure there's no rust on them. It's just a safety thing. Make sure they look halfway decent. But I've been riding the same boots. The boots that I wear in rodeos are 40-year-old Justins that I got from a vintage boot store in Weatherford, Texas, and I beat the crap out of them, and they have been my favorite boots I've worn so far in rodeo. So yeah.
And you also got the spur board, right?
Yeah,
practicing on that.
Yeah.
You want to talk about how you built it, and like if somebody wants to start bareback riding, you know, it's something that's something they could build at home and get started, you know, practicing, working on their form. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I built 2 spur boards. One I don't have anymore. The one that we have is actually in your backyard.
Yeah.
And not knowing at the time, I found a plan for it on YouTube, but I didn't equate the difference that this guy was practicing on. He was practicing bareback riding on it, but it was actually built for saddle bronc riders. So even though I'm practicing on that, the levels of it are just different. Bareback spur boards tend to be smaller and have 2 different levels to sit on to kind of emulate the horse's neck and where your rigging's sitting at. So I didn't know that. So I don't think it made a terrible difference. At least I'm getting the practice in. But going back, I'm going to build a new one, a smaller one, more compact, that I can actually strap to the top of my car to take the rodeos and stuff like that. Yeah. But spur boards are essential, especially when you're starting out. But pros use it all the time, every day, no matter what. 20 minutes a day will build up that muscle memory, repetition of spurring every single time, and just how it feels. And when you're practicing on a spur board, do everything. Probably don't wear your chaps, but put your boots on, tie your rigging down as tight as possible, get your glove ready, like an extra glove or different set that you have, rosin that thing up, put it in there, and do everything that you would do at a normal rodeo, and that's how you're going to build that repetition and that muscle memory. So when you get on that horse and you go out, you know that your mark out is going to be phenomenal, and after it has that first jump, that you can get that timing down. Because that's the biggest thing when it comes to saddle bronc and bareback, is that your timing has to be precise. Right. Or because if you hold your mark out the entire time, it's going to screw up everything. Your spurring, going back, launching back forward, that puts you at the perfect spot that you need to be. And if you just don't reconnect after you or bring your feet back and you don't make that connection again, you're going to be flailing on the back of the horse until either your glove comes out or you get hung up. Right. So it's essential to have that muscle memory in there.
Can you talk a little bit about just like the scoring for, like, the rules and scoring for bareback riding, and like what are they looking for? Obviously, you know, the 8-second time. Yeah. What else are they looking for?
Well, it's actually funny that you asked that question, because a new rule change has come by, but I'll talk about that in a second. So coming out of the chute, as soon as you get ready, get your glove in positions, you know, clench your knees together, and as soon as you nod your head, you have to mark out. And marking out is just that initial motion of shooting your feet forward on the horse's neck and making that connection. And your feet have to have the connection on that neck as it leaves the chute. And then the first jump, you usually hold it for the first jump, and then that's when you start spurring and doing that. If you do not make your mark out, it's a disqualification in the ride. That's how it's been for a long time. But the IPRA, which is the International Pro Rodeo Association, they came out with a rule change for 2025 that negated the markout rule, which I thought was really interesting. And I don't have enough experience to whether to say that I agree or disagree with it. However, my opinion is that if you don't if you don't make your mark out sets the tone for your entire ride.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't make a mark out, it's probably not going to be a great ride to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also just a fundamental thing to learn. But two, I could see why they did that, because each judge, because they have judges on, depending on how many judges there are, there's usually 2 to 3,
Mm-hmm.
one on each side and maybe one a little bit further down. Each judge is determination of a mark out completely different, just depending on how high your feet are on the horse's neck.
Yeah.
The one I got hung up in July, still made 8 seconds on it, but my judge on my left side said I missed my mark out. And looking back, I think I did okay. I think my mark out was okay, but it was, and I had other people say that my mark out was okay. So it's just the it's our referees. So
Mm-hmm.
one referee's, like in baseball, their opinion could be something different, and it's how they interpret the rule book. So
yeah.
I don't know whether I agree with it or not, but when it comes to scoring, it's all, like I said, it's all about timing, because there's not real, I wouldn't say there's like style points,
Mm-hmm.
and the style comes from how clean the ride is, because when you're riding a horse, when it bucks, spreads out, you want to be connected with the neck, and then as soon as it comes back in, that's when your legs come out and then shoot back. So they're just looking at how cleanly
Mm-hmm.
that you can do that, and how much control you have over your body
Right.
as you're riding. So if the guy's moving back and forth while he's on the back of this horse, like going to side, it's probably not going to be a great score, and he's probably missing some good spurring points in there. But you watch like Rocker Steiner, like Casey Fields, like Jacob Lees, those guys it's like methodical. Like
right.
it's like something just takes over them, and it's smooth, like everything. It's like I'm just, they're not just, it's like they're not even thinking about it. It just comes so natural to them.
Yeah.
And that's why they're some of the best bareback riders in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have the scores, or the riders that get scored, right?
Yeah.
And then the horses get scored too.
Yeah, just like bull riding, it's 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
So the max points that a rider can get is 50 points,
Mm-hmm.
and the max points that a horse can get is 50 points,
right?
Which can equate to 100 points,
Mm-hmm.
which no one does. But so out here, it's just a little bit different, and every state's going to be different, and especially because this isn't considered like pro rodeo necessarily, because you have the PRCA, which is in a different league.
Mm-hmm.
But like the horses here are just, I'm not going to say that they're not at the level of the one, but they're not. But it's just, they're going to score based on how all the horses in the association ride. They're not going to compare like a horse here compared to like Virgil in the PRCA. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's just a different
level.
Yeah,
like
different
major
level.
league versus minor league type of
So
thing.
yeah, exactly. So the highest score that I've gotten in 2 years was 75 or 76. So I mean, that's just mid-level. Like that, most guys are, and you see like top bareback rider in the SRA right now is Tanner Phipps, and Tanner just he throws out 80s every time, 80s and above, 80, 85 every time. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just, but he's been doing it for probably close to 12 years. So it's just, it's just different. And these guys could 100% go to the PRCA and probably do pretty decent. So it's tough. I would not want to be a judge, because scoring that, my opinions are just a little bit different. So I couldn't even imagine trying to score bareback riders on that. But I think the judges, for how little bareback riders that we have here, they know how hard the sport is, and they definitely appreciate it. And the scores they give reflect that 100%.
Are there certain parts of like the United States where bareback riding is like bigger, more popular?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't know how big it is in Texas. I'm sure there's a lot of smaller rodeos that you see. That a lot of guys, rodeos. There's no place that rodeo is bigger than Texas. So I'm sure there's a massive amount of bareback riders in associates in Texas. But in North Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, like where our association kind of takes place, there's only 12 bareback riders out here, and the max that you can have in the finals is 12. Well, only 7 qualified this year, so we only have 7 bareback riders. But the most bareback riders you see here per rodeo, the most that I witnessed, we had, I think it was 7. I think 7 bareback riders. That was the most
at one rodeo.
At one rodeo, yeah, one go. And there's been plenty of rodeos where I'm the only bareback rider,
right?
Or there's one. Mostly, there's 2 of us.
Yeah.
2 of us. So, but like a lot of them, I've seen more coming from like Utah, the northern states like Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, really big. But I didn't. I always thought bareback was a super, super niche community. Like I didn't think people wanted bareback ride anymore. It's just I thought it was kind of dying out, and I didn't really think in give it 10 years, I didn't think there was going to be a lot of bareback riders. But something that changed that is that we, in July, we went to the National High School Finals Rodeo in Wyoming, and I got to go back, and I met a couple of the kids that were riding, and I'm watching them ride, and I'm like, these kids, and they had a crap load of bareback riders there, and watching these kids ride gave me so much hope and motivated me to do better, because how aware they were with what they were doing, and they're about to be in college, and so they're like trying to get these college sponsorship or college scholarships to go rodeo in college. I thought it was incredible, and I learned a lot of stuff from them too. I'm not going to be the person to be like, oh, I know everything about bareback riding, because I'm learning stuff every day for people way younger than me that have been doing it way longer than me. Yeah,
it does help. When you grow up around it and are doing it your whole life. But it's never too late to start. And even if you're just going around riding in local rodeos, it's still a great time and it's fun. So
yeah, and a big thing for me was I started rodeo super late. Like this is I almost no one starts this late. I started when I was 25. I'd only been 25 for a couple months, so that's insanely late to start. But the one thing that was people always gave me hope. That was well, Casey Fields was 25 when he started bareback riding, and Casey Fields is a 6-time world champ bareback rider. He's and probably one of the greatest. And but I was but he lived it growing up, so it's a little bit different. And he just didn't start rodeo at 25. He was doing other things that prepared him for that. So, but it's still, dude.
Yeah, awesome. I'm trying to think here if there's if we missed out on anything. Let's see here. I guess, or as a we think if there's anything else we missed. I like to ask all of my just friends within the rodeo ranching community, what is your definition of a cowboy?
Yeah, I do. That's I think that's a tough question. I mean, not really, but everyone has their own definition of cowboy. And if you would have asked me when I very first started, I'm like, this is cowboy, rodeo's cowboy,
right?
And I'd be like, now that I have the absolute pleasure to know real cowboys, you're there's such a massive difference between rodeo cowboys and an actual cowboys. Rodeo is the spotlight of the Western industry. That's where a lot of money, and that's where a lot of sponsorships and how we keep Western tradition alive. Yeah, but we're not. And plenty of real cowboys do rodeo, but we're not the guys that are going out and sorting cattle, giving them medicine, feeding them, making sure their livestock stays alive, and dead of winter where it's snowing and nothing's growing. Those are the guys that are out there every single day, and those are the people that produce most of the meat for the United States of America. They're keeping that and our traditions alive. We're just spotlighted because it's turned into a massive sport recently, where it's broadcasted all over the world. We have riders from Brazil, Canada, Australia, and everywhere. They just had a rodeo in France a couple months ago. So
That's awesome.
Dude, it's I just don't like. People need to understand how totally different they are.
Right.
Because I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that I'm a real cowboy. As much as I love Western lifestyle, and I'll continue to do Western lifestyle forever and be involved, rodeo cowboys have an expiration date.
Mm-hmm.
You can't and I know guys that are 69 to 75 years old that still do rodeo, but your body at some point just will tell you to do something else. Yeah. But
is there? Do you think there's, whether you're a rodeo cowboy or you're in that ranching lifestyle, like there's similar characteristics or traits or I guess like values that they share?
I think the biggest thing that separates just the Western lifestyle in general than any other lifestyle in America is that we hold our families are so dear to us that we build like the next generation. It's all about generations. Mm-hmm. So if you have a ranch, like you lived on a ranch, working ranch, you like your kids and they're forced into it essentially, but it's because you want them to love it so they can continue on the legacy of what we've been doing for 250 years.
Yeah.
And you see that in the rodeo community so much, like family, like generational rodeo cowboys, and just the family community around that rodeo, like we all take care of each other. Like, yes, we're competing against each other, but we all want to see each other do well, and we're going to do everything to help each other. Mm-hmm. So, and I think that's just across the board, and that's the biggest thing that I think bleeds between rodeo cowboys and real cowboys is that family dynamic that we have, which is awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that's a major thing that America is missing, and it's slowly coming back due to all the spotlights that we have on us now, which is awesome.
Yeah. I'd like to, put out, if you're looking at getting started in rodeo, it was huge for me for, meeting Cam, because not only is Cam really knowledgeable on just like all things rodeo, but he also has so many different connections to reach out to people and ask questions, if he doesn't know something. So if you are looking to get started, you could do what we did and just literally hop on your first bull or horse. I'm not going to say that's wrong, but if you can, go to a rodeo school or start on a spur board or a buck and barrel.
Yeah. And I think one thing off-putting to a lot of people is that not a lot of people are used to traveling so much. Mm-hmm. That's the biggest part of rodeo that I had to learn just to travel on your own. Mm-hmm. So do not be afraid to find that, like if you're on the East Coast, do not be afraid to find that school in Utah or Texas and go to it. They're Sankey Rodeo, they do it. And there's a bunch of different other rodeo schools. I know Casey Fields puts on a lot of rodeo schools, especially for high school students that want to get into it. And, there's just no better teacher than him. And so but make sure you vet them. And what I'd say is that there's a lot of good information out there, but do not listen to somebody who doesn't do what they preach. There's a lot of, I'm not going to say gunsels, which is, you can look that turn up yourself, but there's just a lot of people that over embellish what they've done in the rodeo community. And so you have to vet and choose wisely who your teachers are. Mm-hmm. I was lucky that my teachers found me, and I just was blessed that I could ask them questions, and they took 6 hours out of their day, or I could go out there and they could help me, teach me so much about my rigging. But you have to make sure the person actually knows what they're talking about.
Right. Yeah. And be teachable. Be willing to learn. Don't act like you know everything, because,
Yeah, dude. I learned something. 2 years is nothing in the rodeo industry. I learn something new. It seems like I open up TikTok or Instagram, and I watch a bareback rider or an instructor, and I learn something new that I didn't know for the last 2 years. And I was like, well, I wish I knew that 2 years ago when I started. So, but and it's always evolving. Like new gear's always coming out. You know, so just stay on top of it, willing to learn, keep an open mind. And when you lose, like when you don't do good at rodeo, I wouldn't say, learn from that experience and listen to what other people have to say at the rodeo because they're watching you and they're paying attention. And sometimes you don't always know what you did. Even if you watch your video back, you are not going to you have a different mindset. So listen to other people, take what they have to say, and just learn from it. Like be adaptable. Like the biggest thing is in rodeo is just be adaptable because everything changes. You're not going to get on the same horse every single rodeo. You're not going to be working with the same stock contractors every single rodeo, and nothing will ever pretty much go your way. Like you have to so. It's a really big commitment, and part of that just is adapting to it.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. And like you'll be surprised how many people in the rodeo community are willing to help. So don't be afraid to ask.
Oh no, yeah. If I wouldn't have, like I said, first rodeo didn't talk to a single person the entire time. Second day of the rodeo, I'm like, even though I was like, okay, well that wasn't too bad. I'm hurting a lot right now, so I want to learn. And so I just got to talking with one of the guys, Lane Roland, and then we connected at a local rodeo here. And he literally took, and he didn't even have to do this, but he took 6 hours out of his day. We had the stock contractor, asked him to load some horses up and just, practice putting our riggings on. Everything down to your spurs, the boots that you were wearing, how you set up your chaps, everything, the vest that we were wearing, just going over all the gear. But he took out all that time, and all we did was spend 3 hours cinching our riggings there, make sure it was tight, good to go, tying it off, make sure it was cool, take it off, and do that again. We did that for like 3 hours. Yeah. And that was it. So, and that, now I can 100% be, because I'm not going to say everyone at the rodeo will help, but not at every single rodeo. You're going to have that person there to help you put your rigging on. You need to have that knowledge yourself to be able to do it yourself, just in case something else is going on. Right. And 99% of the time, I put my rigging on myself and I cinch it. And mostly it's because if something goes wrong in that ride, I don't want to have that thing in my mind where it's like, well, that person messed up putting on my rigging, and so I screwed up my ride. I refuse to do that. And so if I do it myself and I screw up, then the blame is all on me. Right. And when it comes to rodeo, yes, the stock can screw you up and you can get a re-ride, and sometimes the stock's not what you want, but I would say majority of the time, everything that you do is controllable in rodeo. So if you don't do well, that's on you, and there's no other blame to be put on it. So that's what you have to work on, and be willing to recognize, or you're going to continue to do terribly. Right.
That's one of the things I had to learn, like getting in the chute, because you're just jacked up on nerves and adrenaline, and the rodeo event people are trying to rush you in the chutes to keep the show going on and stuff, and like you just have to slow things down. And if your rigging's not right or your rope's not right, you have to be able to clear your mind and be like, hey, I need to reset this. Don't just get on and go, because that's not gonna turn out well for you.
Yeah. And I encourage everybody, if you really, really want to try it, I encourage everybody to do it. However, I truly believe you need to have the right reason to do it. So people just want to get on to look cool for the gram or whatever, TikTok. That's not the reason that you should be gone. That's actually, if you continue to do that, you're focusing more on the social media aspect of not focusing on being safe while doing it, and you're going to end up getting injured that way. And I'm not trying to discourage people, but you have to have, there's just a level of toughness that you have to have inherently to do it. Like, the injuries come with it, obviously. One of the things that I just had to get used to and kind of live with is, like, I was traveling so much, so get used to being broke. So paying for, I don't pay for hotels anymore because I sleep in my car and I have my whole car set up. But at the time I was paying for hotels, paying your entry fees, and if you're not winning money, you're just adding entry donations. So that's not helping. You're paying for gas. So I drive the best car ever for it, which is a 21 Subaru Impreza. So it gets 36 miles to the gallon.
Gas mileage.
Yeah, great gas mileage.
Yeah.
And then all your gear on top of that, and the stuff that you need to keep up with your gear. I just remember but I was hitting rodeos every weekend because I loved it so much. Love it so much. And then, just get used to being broke. And if you're not winning money, find a side hustle, do something else. But social media, you can branch out. And one thing that local company, like if you're starting out and you're doing good, local companies love seeing someone with a great work ethic, and they love seeing that. And you just have to put yourself out there and get sponsors. You don't have to be doing great to be doing getting sponsors. I'm so blessed here that so many local companies have put faith in me that I will rep their brand to the best of my abilities, and I hold myself to a different standard while I'm at rodeos. And I would love talking about the brands that I wear. I love talking about. I believe in that brand. If I don't believe in a brand, I don't want to be sponsored by them.
Yeah.
And those sponsorships had literally made or broke my year this year. They paid for so many of my rodeos and helped me out so much. It made it doable. So it was a blessing.
You mind talking about just if you want to talk about who sponsors you, but the process of how did you get the sponsors? What are they? If people are looking for sponsors, how can they? What's a respectful way to reach out and get sponsors and be like, hey, I'm a rodeo athlete. This is what are you kind of expecting from them? What are they expecting from you?
Yeah, actually, that's a great question. I'm trying to think if I actually had a single one that I reached out to. All my sponsorships came super naturally and casually in the open. So my first sponsor that I ever had was the bank. And I've been going to that bar 4 years, and they knew I'd be doing rodeo, and I would send them pictures and stuff like that, and they would love putting them up on their TV screens for it and whatnot. And I love that support. We go there. I know the owners. I know the security guards. And that's just me being friendly and loving to meet people in our community. And after a while, they, and I've been doing rodeo for, a year or so at that point. And when the owners come up to me and just offered the sponsorship, and I was kind of taken back by it. And so I was like, absolutely, I would love that. Send me, and they're like, just send me what your average costs are for a trip for rodeo, and then we'll do our best to help you out with that. And so how I went about it was that I got custom T-shirts made. So they're helping me out. I'm going to rep their brand as much as possible. So they gave me a ball cap. I think I have some decals I need to put on my car. But now every rodeo I go to, I got 3 T-shirts made. And just regular T-shirts, you can get whatever, cinched or whatever you want. And I got, they're my biggest sponsor, so their bar name is just big across my back. So that's if I'm, for picture purposes or I'm walking around. And I also have a patch on my vest for them, but they can see that, and it comes up all the time. We're like, hey, what is that? I was like, oh, actually, this is the best country bar in all of Virginia. And so, and then, one of the things that helped with that sponsorship in particular is that the rodeo that we have in Chesapeake, Virginia, I talked to a lot of the rodeo athletes before and after the rodeo, and the guys that put it on. I said, hey, and I talked to the bar and make sure they're willing to do it. But I basically reserved us a 40-man table, and after the rodeo, as soon as we were done feeding, got everything packed up, that bar was just flooded with rodeo cowboys and cowgirls straight from the rodeo. So they had a blast, and so I still they still talk about that. But some of my other ones were all natural. I'm sponsored by a local vintage store, and I just went in there, and I'm a huge proponent of buying vintage. Stuff was built way better back then. And I got talking to the guy, and he asked me what I was do. So I was like, I'm in the Navy and I rodeo, and he goes, no kidding. And so I went back there a couple times, and I was telling him the issue that I have with Wrangler jeans is that when I'm riding, I either split open my pockets, lose belt loops, or in my crotch area, where just because of how it sits on my rigging, I get tears right there. So now that came about, it's like, well, they produce their own jean jackets and jeans and stuff like that. So now I got to get with him, and he's going to make us custom jeans that that will hold up for rodeo specifically, like rough stock riders. So we don't have to keep buying $40, $80 pair of jeans like every 4 to 6 months, and we have a nice solid pair of jeans. And if you rip it, you just take it right back to them, and they fix it for you. Oh, cool. And then another one that I just picked up 2 months ago. I actually got hit up on Instagram on this company called Squirrel Saloon Trading Co. Local company. The guy is in the Navy. He's active duty Navy. He's in the intel space. Hit me up, and he had a great story about how this company started out. Pretty much exactly how you started wild bearing. Yeah. Active duty Navy. You want to do a more of an outdoor clothing space for that clothing adventure space, and they do charitable work too. But they wanted to find some local guys. Also, I hate the word influencer because I'm not an influencer by any means. But they want to find some local athletes or influencers to sponsor, so they can help branch out to different things. I was like, that's a really cool idea that you're willing to do that. I was really blessed. So they provide me with, they give me a couple shirts and hats and stuff and a flag and my own discount code for the website. So, and that one of the biggest portions of that, people use my discount code. I get a portion of that sale every month, and they give me a check. And actually, now I think about it, my first sponsor wasn't the bank. I got picked up by, I can't believe I forgot about this. I got picked up by Bucked Up, that was more wild than anything because Bucked Up is a massive company. And I've been drinking their energy drinks and using their pre-workout for 6 years, especially on deployment. And I got part of their affiliate program. And through them, when I got picked up by them, that helped me out so much because people were using my coupon code religiously. So $200 a month I was making in commissions from that, and that pays my rodeo fees in general. So now I'm just paying for gas and food and whatnot. So and the stuff that they provide me has helped my recovery so much. All their different supplements that they provide me, their rut, the boosters, and the BCAAs that they give me is just incredible. And they have different things like the brain focus and sleep stuff to help you sleep, which is a big thing for me. So, and like I said, if I didn't believe in these brands, I didn't want to talk about it, I would not be repping them. They have been. The reason I said yes to Bucked Up, I applied for Bucked Up, and I'm glad they said yes. And I was love it because I've been using their products forever, and I think they're phenomenal. But every single one was just I believe in your company. I think it's awesome. Most of them were local, super local, and I prefer to do local than national chains anyway. Because now I'm giving back, and now people can, I'll do a post on Instagram to give them a little bit more engagement for their stuff, so they can actually go there and engage with local stores and stuff like that, which I think is awesome. Yeah. So that's how I get back to the companies.
Right. Which is where at some point social media it can be a good thing if that's it shouldn't be your sole reason, but to get connections and stuff. And I know you've had a couple younger rodeo athletes reach out to you, and you've been kind of mentoring them too. So
that was actually pretty interesting. Because I mean, I got you guys into it. That was one thing. I
Yeah.
lived with you. I've lived with all these other guys. So it's really easy. But I've had kids on like high school kids reach out to me on Instagram or TikTok, like, hey man, I've seen your videos. I'd love to really start bareback riding. I was like, dude, I will. So we'll just FaceTime and I'll show them everything. I'll give them kind of the rundown and what I had to go through. I was like, I don't want you going through that same thing that steep learning curve that I did with all these injuries. This kid out in Missouri, phenomenal bareback rider, super awesome, and I definitely think he surpassed me. But I think he actually slowed down for rodeo just because he had a really bad hang up and stuff. So, but like it's so cool to have that because I had people mentor me later on,
right?
And so now I'm able, and I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna say I'm the best bareback rider. I know everything, but now I can pass the information that they gave to me, and now I can teach the next generation of rodeo. That's the biggest thing because when I stopped rodeoing, like all the time, my biggest thing is like I always want to be involved because I want to give back to it because I refuse to let it die out.
Oh yeah, and the hardest thing is just getting started and knowing like where to go. And once you get started and in the rodeo community, you're gonna meet so many people, and they're gonna be willing. Sometimes unsolicited, you're gonna get advice from people. But but so yeah. Speaking of like social media and stuff, like if people want to get in contact with you or reach out to you, how can they reach out to you?
Sure.
If you're okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm really good about answering Instagram DMs, stuff like that. I'm pretty active on Instagram. That's kind of like my big thing. So my tag on Instagram is California_cowpoke. You can find me that way. If you find me on Facebook, feel free to do that. I'm really bad at answering messages on Facebook, but feel free. And then TikTok, I think it's California Cowpoke again. So, and I'm pretty good about answering both of those. And I have links to everything on Instagram, so you click on the links. You can access all my sponsors' websites and stuff like that. And I'll do the best I can to answer any questions you have. Even if it's general questions and you want a video call, I'm totally okay with that. So, absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. To kind of close things out, do you mind leaving just like parting words of wisdom or a quote or something to leave the listeners?
Oh man, I have there's a quote from John Wayne. I grew up watching a lot of John Wayne stuff, and but I'm gonna screw it up, but it's something about I'm not birch this, but it's just like being scared is one thing, but courage is getting back up and putting on the saddle and riding anyway, or something along the lines of that.
Okay,
so you just gotta have. It's all about just the want to do it and having the courage. Like everything in the world is scary, but you just need to have the want, the courage to go for it.
Yeah,
and that's the biggest thing. It's like that was what drove me through rodeo, through everything. So yeah,
that's awesome, dude. Thanks for coming on. It's awesome.
Absolutely, man.
Awesome having you,
dude. That was awesome.
Come out here. Yeah, it was fun. So, Wild Bearing, thanks for listening, tuning in, and sticking with us. Stay wild, and we'll see you next time.
See you guys.